recently the wife and I decided to buy a SUP board, and we landed on the Mistral SUP board from Lidl in order to enjoy our summer, especially during the lockdown. The plan for the SUP board was to take it out to the local sea as well as to the rivers and lakes in order to have some fun during the lockdown. We did realize and had quite a lot of fun with the board in the water, but found it actually quite difficult and cumbersome to move the large pump around, as well as pumping up the board. We did notice inflating with the given pump, which is over here. You can see the Mistral pump. Normally would take us quite a few minutes, but we'd initially get it to a relatively hard state. However, to get it to the required 15 psi took a lot more effort, and rather made the inflation of the SUP pump a chore rather than something enjoyable, and thus decreased the fun and novel aspect of our SUP experience. For that reason, I went onto the internet to find a solution to this, and there weren't very many solutions. There have been a few air pumps that I did see online. However, those more often than not needed a 12-volt battery source, which this one can do. But thinking the practicality of how far we walk away from the car, this would not be ideal for us. There were other solutions indicating that we could use almost a power bank in order to get this to run. However, this was also quite cumbersome, and it was noted that more often than not, the power bank would fail very soon and not give you the required voltage in order to fill up the SUP completely. I also looked through other websites which indicated some quite expensive SUP pumps which are wireless. However, looking through eBay and Amazon, I settled on a wireless inflator SUP air pump. I got this one as new, however, opened from an independent seller, and it only cost me about 40 quid, which I felt was quite a good bargain. However, I could not find any reviews indicating how this worked and if this worked well. So the whole purpose of this review is basically to show you how this works and if it does work on a Mistral SUP and whether it will be something that you would use. So looking at this, it came in a nice carry case, much smaller and easier to move about than the Mistral pump itself. It says it has a 2500 mAh rechargeable Li-ion battery, a 12-volt DC car connector, auto off feature, and it can inflate up to 20 psi. So in theory, perfect for my Mistral SUP. So I'll open it up and show you what's inside, and then we can give it a try on my Mistral SUP, which is outside, and I'll also time it to see how long this takes and whether this is a solution for myself and in extension yourselves, or maybe I should look elsewhere. Inside the box we have the pump itself. As you can see, the plastic is still on as the eBay listing had said. You've got an on button, a plus sign to increase the PSI, and a minus sign to decrease the PSI. You've got a wall plug charger that plugs into the required pump, and looking over here, it does say that it needs a 12-volt DC. It's got 3 times 2,500 mAh battery, and also a 12-watt car power can be taken. I did charge this in between, and note that it did take a couple of hours for it to charge fully. So we've got the wall plug. We've also got quite a long carport charger in order to use it as a normal pump like the ones that have been listed throughout and are sold at the SUP board shops. And then we've obviously got the pump and all the connectors, which I'll be opening and trying and seeing which one's the best way forward. But I do have my Mistral pump, and should that work, I'll use that pipe instead of opening the brand new pipes to try keep this as new as possible. So the next step will be is once well, this is charged, but we'll charge it, make sure it's 100% full, and we'll go outside and we will inflate my pump and inflate my SUP and ultimately see how fast it is and whether it gets to required 16 psi. And we will check it with our Mistral pump to make sure that it is at the accuracy is correct, and also if this auto cutoff is something that happens, or we'll have to keep an eye on it throughout. Of note, I did notice that we shouldn't cover the vents at the bottom, so I'm thinking to put the pump on the SUP itself, and hopefully it doesn't get too hot to destroy the SUP at all. And I'll get back to you with that. See you soon. Through the pipe that I've got from our Mistral SUP, unfortunately the pipe does not fit. If you can see, this is a lot deeper than what the pipe that Mistral gives you in over here, so therefore it could not fit into the pipe itself. So I'm using their pipe, and with regards to them, they come with different connectors, and I will choose the appropriate connector for my subboard, and I'll begin the inflation process. The actual connector that was with it seems to fit the best. What I do like quite a lot is that it does have this piece of rubber at the bottom that gives you a nice seal when I did try it on the subboard. So yeah, I'll set it up now and we'll see how long it takes. I'm connected to the subboard. It was relatively easy. It seems to have fitted in quite nicely. I'm going to turn it on for the first time. So that turns on. Light comes on. And then you set to the required PSI, 12 PSI, 16 PSI, 20 PSI. So I'm going to go to the 16. Press. And it's starting to go. Obviously, I don't know if I can set up the 15 PSI, but I'll give it a try. So let me just long press, and yes, you can. So there it is, 15 psi, which is exactly what I need, and we'll press. Obviously, you can hear it is a relatively loud unit, but I wouldn't say it's extremely loud. And we'll see how it goes. So let's start timing. Took about 30 minutes. With regards to everything, I did note that although the initial piece that I had put in had fitted relatively well, once it started in high pressure, I noted that some air was escaping, and that took a lot longer. It actually drained the battery at the 15 psi mark. You did note I also kept checking it with my manual pump, and it's relatively accurate, but I would still suggest firstly, I don't trust it at this stage, as this SUP was quite expensive. Just for the first few times, at least keep an eye on it. I did need a couple of pumps of my manual pump to get it to full PSI, although it did cut off at the required PSI with regards to the pump. Of note, you do have these plastic connectors as well as some rubber, and it did take me a while to get the right position and put everything together. I will just show you close up now that the wind has died down, basically how the pump works. And that there's no air escaping, as was my problem earlier. You can see at the moment it's at 7.8 psi, and hopefully when I get it to 15 psi I will show you how it cuts off. So it's now reading 15.1. I think it just automatically cuts off at 16, just slightly too high for my pump. So now what I'll do, it feels very solid at this stage. It filled up quite nicely. Obviously it's a 2-chamber, so I had to fill it up 2 chambers. All in all, it took about 30 minutes. Inside again, and overall impression of the pump. Yeah, it works. I wouldn't say it is amazing and it could be for you, could not be for you. For me, I can definitely see myself using it, but there's a few caveats that come along with it. I did notice when I was inflating, as I said earlier, the initial connection that I had was quite good and I was happy with it. But then when it started getting into higher pressures, it began to unfortunately leak some air. Took me a while of fiddling. There are some rubber pieces at the top over here. I chose the black one. There's white ones over there. And finally I got the right connection so it doesn't leak. And it did fill up to 15 psi. The auto cutoff, from what I understand, is at 16 psi, not 15, so I have to keep an eye on it. I know you can put it a certain setting, but I couldn't manage to get it off, so I have to look at that a bit more in depth. With regards to the accuracy, I did check it twice with my manual pump, and it was there or thereabouts. But again, with the amounts of money I've spent on this Mistral SUP, I would rather just keep an eye on that with a manual pump for at least a few more times before I wouldn't be taking the pump. It took about 30-35 minutes even with the fiddling, without the fiddling, as I re-inflated it off camera. And mine is dual chambers, so the first chamber took about 25 minutes and the second chamber took about 10 minutes. And in all honesty, despite having 2,500 milliamp hour batteries, it was really touch and go with regards to battery. Furthermore, with this, it isn't the most silent of air pumps. However, all air pumps aren't, so if you're going to a quiet, serene place with other people around, you may get some angry stares. With regards for myself, I do feel that I will definitely use it when I go to the beach, as I can start the pump, get everything going with regards to putting towels down, getting the kids ready, and hopefully by then the pump would be ready. And certainly I don't want to be doing any manual pumping in the heat. So the benefits of this, it is relatively small. It charges in about a couple of hours, and you can wirelessly inflate your pump. The downsides of it is quite loud. As I said, it isn't a 10-minute quick inflation. You certainly can inflate it faster manually. You're just saving yourself the effort and the sweat with this pump. I would suggest always having the DC connector with, and when I start using it again in the summer, I may start to inflate it either manually or with a bit of the DC, and then change over to this, as the fact that I was a bit concerned with regards to the battery towards the end. But again, it got me to where I needed to go. The pump doesn't have a deflate function, but again, all you need to do is put one of its connectors into your valve, and it presses the button down quite nicely and the air comes out. So not a feature that is a make or break for me. So that basically is my review of the SUP pump. Hopefully this helps you. It certainly put more of a light on how these things work, as you see a lot of these paid adverts or other bloggers who clearly are paid indicating that it is the best. It does work. Whether it works for you is up to you to make that decision. Thanks for watching.